We were mortified and humiliated, and as quickly as we could, we gathered ourselves and we left. And you know, when we got to the parking lot, it's embarrassing to admit, but I cried.
He's talking about a baker refused to make he and his partner a cake because it was a same-sex wedding. The baker says it was against his religious beliefs to make the cake. The Supreme Court argued the case is very weak and it'll determine whether this was in fact discrimination or the baker exercising his religious rights. Also on the High Court's docket, cell phone privacy. Police, they tracked the suspect in a string of robberies at Radio Shacks by getting his info on his whereabouts via cell phone carriers. Now that put him at the scene of the crimes, but police never got a warrant in the case. Was that unconstitutional? The Supreme Court will take a look at that as well. And the court also heard arguments about sports betting in New Jersey. The state, it would like to legalize it at casinos and racetracks, but right now that's against federal law. Lots of other states watching this case very closely. Well, a short time ago, I spoke about all of these cases with Brooklyn Law School professor William Araiza. All right, so let's get into these cases. And the first one, which I think is probably the most fascinating, is the Masterpiece Cake Shop case. And obviously, you got a clash between First Amendment rights and anti-discrimination laws. To me, if the court upholds that this cake shop has the right to basically decide who to sell to and not, where does the line end then? Are we opening up Pandora's box potentially?
Well, certainly the plaintiffs in this case are saying that, yes, there'd be a Pandora's box opened if the cake shop owner in this case were able to choose his customers based on their sexual orientation. The argument goes, what would stop another bake shop owner or another proprietor or some other business from choosing her customers based on their race? The baker has an argument that, you know, I'm engaging in speech when I create these unique cakes, and if you make me create these cakes, what's to stop an artist, a wedding singer, for example, from being compelled to directly speak at an event that she opposes?
But you said it yourself. If we have anti-discrimination laws in the books, you're not allowed to decide, I don't want gay people to be able to enjoy my service when someone else, we had this fight in this country as to, you know, who gets served at the lunchroom counter. You can't say blacks, you have a different door for you. How do you navigate just ignoring those laws if you say I have a right to serve who I want?
Well, absolutely. And just to be clear, the bake shop owner acknowledges that non-discrimination norm, but he's arguing that, in fact, he's perfectly willing to comply with non-discrimination laws to the extent they don't implicate either his free speech rights when he bakes the cake or his religious expression rights when he bakes the cake.
Were you a little surprised the Supreme Court decided to take this case?
I wasn't. On the one hand, these cases have been popping up with some regularity in the lower courts, and to that extent, I think at some point it was really incumbent on the court to decide this. I also wasn't surprised because I think when Justice Kennedy wrote his same-sex marriage opinion a couple of years ago, he went out of his way to not denigrate the beliefs of people who disagree with same-sex marriage. It was sort of inevitable that a case would come up that would require him to figure out, Justice Kennedy that is, who really is the swing vote in this case, to figure out the line.
Next we get to Carpenter, and you know, it's about, yes, it's a Fourth Amendment case, but it's really about, in the digital age, what expectations should we have as a people as it relates to privacy, and to that end, forget who the defendant is in this particular case, or the plaintiff, I should say. Moreover, for me, they never got a warrant. I don't know, isn't there an expectation that you at least have to try to get a warrant here? It wasn't an exigent circumstance. You can't just take everything you want off a cell tower and then not only acquire it, but then search and sift through it and then use that in an investigation.
Well, in fact, the government would say, yes, you can. There is a well-established doctrine in Fourth Amendment law called the third-party doctrine, which essentially says that individuals do not have legitimate expectations of privacy in information that they have willingly shared with a third party, hence the term the third-party doctrine. In this case, the third party is, of course, the cell company, to the extent that you have willingly shared your locational data by having a phone and having it turned on, then the theory goes you've given up any expectation of privacy in that locational data. The third-party doctrine, which is really established during the era of the dial phone, smartphones today, with all their capabilities, are in fact quite different than anything we've seen before, and that might mean that the Fourth Amendment has to adjust. Maybe.
Now to an issue closer to home, but also with implications obviously beyond New Jersey. I'm talking about Christie versus U.S., and that's been this longstanding argument as to whether or not there could be legalized gambling, sports betting more specifically, with the casinos and these OTB parts. Okay. To that end, explain to me why the implications of this ruling as to whether or not New Jersey can or can't do this could go well beyond sports betting, and some people say it could actually impact things like even sanctuary cities.
The facts of the Christie case are pretty sexy. Sports betting, OTB parlors, etc., as you were saying, but the legal doctrines are actually pretty banal. This is basically the idea of federalism and the idea of the extent to which federal law can trump state law and under what circumstances. We all know that the federal government has the constitutional power to regulate something, then it can trump any state choices made to the contrary. But on the other hand, there were great concerns that uncabined, that federal preemption power could essentially lead to a situation where the states have no regulatory authority whatsoever. For example, to allow OTB betting or to allow sports gaming online, or maybe more seriously, to enact sanctuary cities policies. All of those policy choices made by state and local governments could be up for grabs. They could be threatened by a broad ruling in favor of federal preemptive power.
It's going to be a fascinating session already underway. Bill, I certainly appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Happy to do it, as always.
Up next, we'll take a look at some local headlines, so please stay with us.